We are delighted this morning to have Matthew Jobe come as our speaker this morning. He and Tanner served in the Air Force together at Whiteman. He may want to tell some stories since the pastor's not here. We'll find out as he shares with us. But we want you to come and share the word with us, and everyone give him a warm welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me here. And I won't get into the Tanner stories today. We'll save that for maybe next time. No, Tanner's a good guy. And I sure know that he loves his church. He loves his people. And so that's an awesome testament on his behalf. So happy Mother's Day. And that's what today is all about. And like several have already said, we thank our moms every day. You know, our moms have done a lot for us. And so we're going to talk about moms today, of course. And so just some funnies for you, but some things that I think about that Mom taught us. And some of you guys can relate to some of these. But Mom taught us about religion. She said, you better pray that comes out of the carpet. And Mom taught us about time travel. She said, straighten up or I'll knock you into next week. And Mom taught us some logic. She said, because I said so, that's why. That's pretty logical. Mom taught us the foresight. How often did you hear, wear clean underwear, you might be in an accident. Mom taught us stamina. She said, you'll sit there till that plate's clean. You know. Mom taught us the circle of life. How many times did you hear, I brought you into this world, I can take you out the center. Now, Mom taught us justice. She said, one day I hope you have a child that acts just like you. And so, yes, so. But a mother is the embodiment of sacrifice and love. And sure love our mothers. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Abe Lincoln said it best when he said, no man is poor who has a godly mother. And I sure am thankful for my mother. She passed about 4 years ago. And but she taught me a lot. And we'll sure visit about her and some other mothers today also. And so I'll read you a verse, and then we'll pray and we'll get rolling here. So Psalms 94 verse 9 says, he that planteth the ear, shall he not hear? So he that planteth the ear, shall he not hear? Talking about God. God sure hears us. Let's have a word prayer. Billy, Father, thank you for this beautiful Sunday. Thank you that where two or more are gathered, Lord, we can worship you, we can praise you. Thank you for all you've done for us. Thank you that even with all our problems, we live in the greatest country on the planet. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for Tanner, and thank you that he's preaching your word down here. And lead you through the day, Lord, and help us to get something out of this and help us to be thankful and praise our moms today. In your name, amen. He that planteth the ear, shall he not hear? So that's going to be a key part of what we talk about here. We're going to look at 1 Kings chapter 17. If you have your Bibles, you can turn. If not, I'll be flipping through some pretty quickly. So in chapter 17 here, we learn about Ahab. He was a ruler, and he was an evil ruler. Did a lot of bad things. And he was evil in the sight of the Lord. Elijah came and said, hey, God's going to put a severe drought here. There's going to be famine in the land. This is kind of basically your punishment. Hey, wake up, straighten up. Let's get things right here. And so we see that Elijah, we'll bounce back and forth here just a little bit, but down here in verse 8, it said, and the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, he's talking to Elijah, arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, behold, the widow woman was there, gathering of sticks, and he called her and said, fetch me, I pray thee, a little water in a vessel, that I may drink. Well, that's not too hard. She could go get some water. But it said, as she was going to fetch it, he called to her and said, hey, while you're in there, bring me, I pray thee, a morsel of bread in thine hand. And she said, as the Lord thy God liveth, I have not a cake, but a handful of meal in the barrel, and a little oil in a cruse. And behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and dress it for me, and my son, that we may eat it and die. And so some things I think about here, this widow woman, she's gathered 2 sticks. We've all had bonfires, we've all cooked stuff on the fire before. 2 sticks doesn't burn very much, does it? It doesn't make a very big fire. But she knew I had very little meal. And what I believe, and that's, I know some of you looking at my meal barrel here today, but I believe that widow woman spent a lot of time the last few days doing this, scraping that bottom. You know, she might have said, oh, gotta get that out. Scrape it, scrape it. There's probably 2 or 3 days that, you know, I got that much more. Oh, scrape that meal barrel, scrape that meal barrel. I need a little more. But what I think is really cool about that is I look at everything, we raise cattle and horses, and I look at a lot of things from that point of view. But what I think about is God's a busy man. You know, he's not too busy for the widow woman, but he's a busy man. He's out there answering all our prayers. He's in charge of this whole universe. Jesus said, my Father owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. We do a lot of cattle work out in Flint Hills, Kansas, and if you know anything about that area, there's a lot of hills out there. And he doesn't say he owns 1,000 cattle. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. That's a lot of cattle. So I picture God must be a cowboy. I like it. But he's out there checking his cattle. And in Flint Hills, there's 400,000 acres just in Flint Hills. And God wasn't in Flint Hills, but that's what I'm thinking about. And so he's maybe out there riding, checking his cattle. He's busy. If you live on a ranch like we do, it never ends. And you got work all day, every day. You know, and so I picture God being busy. But I picture this widow woman scraping that mill barrel. And what's the verse? First verse that we look at. He that planteth the ear, shall he not hear? And to me, that's awesome. That this great universe, all us people, all the things going on, all the things God has to do, but he hears. He's like, oh, there's my widow woman. I got to go take care of her. And that's amazing. And no different in our lives. God hears us whenever we need something. So we're scraping that mill barrel. He's like, oh, there's my child. I got to go help him out. Come on. And so that's awesome. You know, a mama knows her child's cry. Little Anthony here, when he cries, mama knows if he's just out there being ornery. Or she knows, oh, that one's serious. I got to go help her. And as a 7-year-old boy, a lot of them are just being loud and being hungry. But whenever it's real, mama knows. And just like Jesus knows, we hear him scraping that mill barrel. I was talking with Scott earlier, but last week we had our big spring branding out in Flint Hills, and so we're roping calves and we're branding them. And it's amazing. You can have 100 cows out there, but when you rope that one and you stick the brand on and it falls just a little bit, that mama, no matter where she's at, she comes up and checks on baby. You know, all 100 of them don't come. They, oh, I hear he that planted the ear. Here, mama cow, no matter where she is, she comes up and says, hey baby, are you okay? And I think that's the way our God is too. Yes. I think we're busy, you know, and he's busy. But, oh, he heard the scraping of the mill barrel and he goes, oh, that's my child. That's my widow woman. And so just amazing, amazing. Pretty awesome to think about. You know, we're such a small thing in this big universe, but God hears us. Yeah. And so we'll move on here. We're going to talk about a few different women in the Bible, but cool, if you back up to verse 4 there, it says, if you know this story, when he's talking about Elijah, Elijah's not in good favor of Ahab or Jezebel, you know, because he went and said, hey, you're fixing to be punished. This is what's happening. And so, you know, don't shoot the messenger. Well, they wanted to shoot the messenger. And so now he's kind of a fugitive, kind of hiding out. And he's in the same land they're in, so he doesn't have any food either. But up in verse 4 it says, God said, I have commanded the ravens to feed thee. And so that's pretty awesome. He can command the animals to take care of us, you know. Then down here it says, I've commanded the widow woman. And so just a little sidetrack there, but pretty awesome that God's in charge. He's in control. Even our daily life, things we worry about, it's okay. God's in control. And he hears us. And so the widow woman scraping the mill barrel. And it says she went and gathered 2 sticks. This is just my opinion. The Bible doesn't tell us. But you know what? Most mill barrels are made out of wood. She knew that was her last meal and she wasn't going to die. Why didn't she just burn her red mill barrel? Cook on top of it. I believe because she had faith. And she thought, I better keep this. It might be God coming along and fill it up. And Just things to think about. And then, if we jump down to verse 15, it says, "And she went and did according to the saying of Elijah," meaning she fed him, just like he said, just like God said, "I commanded." So she's fulfilling her commitment to God. God said, "Feed him." She did. It says, "She and he and her house did eat many days." And then the next verse says, "And the barrel of meal wasted not, neither did the cruse of oil fail, according to the word of the Lord." And so she did what she was told to do. Even though she's sitting there and she's scraping by, barely feeding her own child. And I'm guessing her child was young, couldn't go out and get a job. Otherwise he would have been out working. He would have maybe been out gathering the sticks. So he must have been a small child. She was preparing the last meal. God said, "Hey, feed my prophet." Elijah came and said, "Hey, feed me." And she did. And now it says, never ran out. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? We run out sometimes. We don't fulfill our end of the deal, but God fulfills his end of the deal. And so this mother here, what an example she was, showing us her faith and showing her believing in God. And so pretty great stuff. And move over and talk. Like I said, we're going to talk about a couple mothers briefly, but over in Exodus 2. Anybody remember a guy named Moses?
Yes.
So, anybody know this is it took me a minute to find it, but anybody know Moses' mother's name? Kind of a tricky name, not a name we hear about all the time, because it's only in there, I believe, once. Jochebed. So that's Moses' mother, is Jochebed. And we know very little about her, and she's only mentioned there once, but if we look down here, so at that time, it was instructed for them that they wanted all the boy, men, child to be killed, and they had to go in the river of Nile, and they would die. Well, here Jochebed, she had this baby. Well, of course, no mother wants to give up her baby, and so it says here, chapter 2, verse 2. It says, "And the woman conceived and bare a son." We know this is Jochebed, and Moses is their son. "When she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months." So a couple things I see right off the bat. I like to look at things from different angles. And a couple things I see right off the bat. She saw that he was a goodly child. And, Mama saw and believed in her child. How many times do we need just Mama to believe in us? And how many times does that make us get so much more done? And do we want to do it correctly? Because Mama believes in us. And this world is a rough world right now. And we need somebody to believe in us. And it sure is nice that we have awesome moms that believe in us. So right off the bat, he had a mama that believed in him. It said, "And she hid him 3 months." Now, y'all that have had a small child, what's it like to hide him for 3 months? A screaming baby. That'd be hard. I can't hide a 7-year-old for 5 minutes, much less 3 months. And so the Bible doesn't tell us, but you know what? I bet Jochebed scraped in the barrel. I bet she is praying. I bet she said, "God, help me hide this child. Help me not to cry. Take care of it." So every time I think about the widow woman scraping that barrel, I think about praying. I think about God hearing our prayers. And hide a child for 3 months at any age, but especially a baby, that'd be tough. And then thinking about a baby child, we, at that point in time, how awesome are our mothers? We depend on our mother at that point in time for everything. They have to feed us, they have to change us, they have to keep us clean, they have to keep us healthy. And so moms are pretty amazing. And so we definitely thank you. Thank you for being awesome moms. Another thing about she was a faithful instrument of God's purpose. She acted out of faith in God. Her faith is what raised Moses. If we look down here and we'll read on, it says, "When she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch and put her child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the riverbank." So she put it down in the weeds in the water and hid it there. It said, "And his sister, Moses' sister, stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh," so Pharaoh is killing all these boys. So we already know this Pharaoh is not a good fellow here. And but it says his daughter. which at that time his daughter would have been under his command also, would have been doing everything that he tells her to do. But the Lord used her here. It said, came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside, and when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. So she's like, hey, go get that. And when she had opened it up, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. So, right there, it shows that she had compassion. She knew who the child, that it was a Hebrew child. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, and shall make nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. So a couple awesome things I see about this mother, and pretty amazing. I don't believe in coincidences.
Right.
And, here this child is, this mother, what kind of faith would it take to give up your child like that and to put it in this hiding? And God rewarded her faith. And God said, here, we're going to go about this unconventional way, but we're going to find you here. And then guess what? Hey, I need you to nurse this baby for me.
Yeah.
And so, no accident. She got to nurse her own baby.
That's right.
And that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's being in the right place, being where God told you to be. And that's her having that faith in God. Say, God, I give this child to you. I know it's mine, but I give it to you. And came back to her. She got to nurse her own child, raise her own child. If you do any study on children, they say by age 5 kind of sets the tone for what that kid's going to be. And so from the time they're baby to age 5, they say it's the most critical years to train a child. Some even believe up to age 7, but up to age 5 is very critical. And we'll see later, but the verse, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go. Right here in verse 10 it says, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So now the child's old enough. And in my study in here, it said they typically in that age nurse the baby from between age 3 or 5 is when they quit nursing. So this kid's at least 3 years old, Moses, maybe up to age 5. Nursing was done, gave to Pharaoh's daughter. So now Pharaoh's daughter is going to raise it. Well, we already see that Pharaoh's household is not a good Christian upbringing. They're doing a lot of bad things. Pharaoh's daughter, not a good Christian lady. But we see that his mom, Jochebed, had the baby for at least 3 to 5 years. So that upbringing is what made Moses who Moses is. And that foundation there. So we got to give credit again to mom. Mom is what made Moses what he is. And so Moses made some good and bad choices, like all of us have. And but he's considered in the Bible one of the most important prophets. And so that's pretty awesome. Moses was a miracle-making machine. And there's at least 10 miracles in the Bible that were related to Moses. So I found that to be pretty cool. And just a few of them was he got water from a stone. That's pretty cool. We've been praying for this rain. I'm glad we got some rain, but starting to think maybe we needed some water from a stone. And he parted the sea. We all know that story. And, that's pretty awesome. I think he got chocolate stains out of white shirts. Not really. Have you seen if you're awake? But yeah, that's it. That's the kind of guy that Moses was. He did perform like 10 miracles in the Bible. He did a lot of amazing stuff. And it wasn't because he lived in the house of Pharaoh. I guarantee you that. It's because he had a godly mom. It goes back to mom. And so I love all the stories about Mama. My mom, she passed about 4 years ago. And of course that was a sad day, not happy at all. But at her funeral, all these different kids came in and told us all these stories about my mom. Man, it was amazing. And Mom and Dad ran a bus route and for church. So Saturdays they'd go visit all these kids and families, and see what they needed, and make sure they were coming tomorrow. On Sunday mornings we gathered up early. We went and picked up all these kids on the bus and brought them to church. Some of these kids didn't have clothes. Some of these kids, no dirty kids. Some of these kids didn't have food. My mom would make them breakfast. They couldn't go home right away because their parents were out of town or whatever. Mom would bring them to our house. You know, Mom was a garage sale queen, and most of our clothes came from garage sales. And you know what? Most of those church kids, their clothes came from garage sales from my mom's house. You know, and Mom and Dad weren't wealthy people at all. And Dad farmed in the 80s, and any of you that farmed in the 80s, you know that interest spiked and life wasn't the greatest for a road cropper. And yet, Mama, she kept on taking care of all these kids. And at her funeral, a lot of these church kids came and told me what a blessing my mom was. And that was something. Then Mom helped out at one of the local schools. She cashiered at the lunch lady. And again, Mom didn't have a lot of money, but there's kids that didn't have money for lunch. Mom said, "Oh, it's free today." She'd put that in $5 for them, you know. And a lot of our coworkers come and told me, they said, "Your mom didn't have a dime, and she'd go figure out where to get a dime from. She'd pay for those kids' lunch." And it was just amazing, you know. She did so much for us. I have 2 sisters. She did so much for us, but it was awesome to hear what she did for everyone else too. And that's a good godly mom. Jump over to Luke, and trying to get some. There's a lot of good moms in the Bible. We're just briefly covering some of them, but a lot of good stuff in them. So Luke chapter 1, 26 through 56 is introduced to a lady named Mary, and had a baby Jesus. We know that story. But here it says, "In the 6th night, an angel Gabriel was sent from God in a city of Galilee in Nazareth to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. It said, and the angel came to her and said, Hail, thou art highly favored. The Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women." So we see that Mary was quite a godly woman. You know, have favor amongst God. I sure hope that I have just a slight favor amongst God, you know. And here she says she clearly did. Said, and when she saw him, she was troubled. And she probably hadn't talked to many angels. I'd be a little troubled by that too. It said, at his sayings, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said unto her, Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb, and bring forth a son, and shall call his name Jesus. We read through a few more verses there. She has a few questions. She's like, wait a minute. You know, I don't know this man biblically. It's impossible for me to be pregnant, you know. And she's asking a few more questions. She wasn't saying no or anything like that. She just said, hey, I have a few questions if you don't mind. And so answered all her questions and said, then at the end the angel said, for with God nothing shall be impossible. Then the very next thing in verse 38, Mary says, and Mary said, Behold, the handmaid of the Lord, be it unto me according to thy word. And the angel departed from her. Basically right there, Mary said, so be it. I'll do it. Yes, sir. Let's do this. And so Mary, we see again, was willing. And she had favor in God, so we know obviously she's a godly woman. And God uses godly women. And so it's pretty amazing to me. That would be startling to me also. Say, hey, this is going to happen. And even though this is impossible, nothing's impossible with God. This is what's going to be. Mary asked a couple questions. Said, all right, let's do this. So be it. And so pretty awesome mama right there. And if we look at chapter 2, we all know the story of Jesus. Whenever, you know, we'll just read some of it. It said, it came to pass in those days, there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And we see there Joseph also went from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, into the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was a house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. So we know now they had this long travel, and she's quite pregnant. And ladies mamas that have been pregnant, you know, your life changes, and things are harder. And and it's hotter, and it's harder to walk, and so many things with that. And so I feel that Mary had some great struggles ahead of her. It's whenever I was doing some studying, they said that trip would have probably took 7 to 10 days, depending on how they traveled. And there was some hostility in the area, and so they might have not been able to take a direct route. And so 7 to 10 days, that means they were sleeping somewhere. The Bible doesn't really tell us that part of the story, but they might have just been sleeping on the roadside. And, you know, some say she came in on a donkey. I didn't find that, but she may have. But whether you're on a donkey or you're walking, that's a long ways. Spend 7 or 10 days on either one. We ride horses all the time. Spend 7 or 10 days straight traveling somewhere. That's a long time. That wears on somebody in great shape, and it's really hard if you're a great child fixing to have a baby. And so what I see about Mary is she had some struggles. She had rough training to conquer, hostilities. When she got there, remember it says no room in the inn. So now she doesn't even have a Holiday Inn to stay in, And so she had baby Jesus and laid him in a manger. And so that our thinking is, that was in a straw bed, and there's probably animals around, and so on and so forth. Then we think about all the visitors she has. I don't know too many women that want to have a baby and then have 4,000 people in their bedroom seeing the baby. That's a lot. And I don't know that number, but we talk about the wise men, we talk about the shepherds, we talk about everybody else. So she had a lot of visitors. That's a lot on her. But what I see from Mary is she had faith in God. And she's like, this is my duty. Yes, sir, let's do this. I see that Mary is full of grace. And God lived in her. And she had favor in God. That's awesome right there. Like I said, I hope that I can have an ounce of favor with God. And here, the angel came and said, "Fear not, Mary. You have favor with God." And Mary fulfilled her duty. And she was an awesome mom. She went through all the struggles. And I promise you, some of those struggles, she was like scraping that milk girl. She's like, I gotta have a baby out here, I gotta sleep here. But she had faith in God. God heard her, just like he heard that milk girl. And so, another awesome mom. And the last couple moms here we're going to look at, doesn't say much about them in the Bible, but in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 5, this is the only time I found mentioned in the Bible. But it says, "When I call to remembrance the unfeigned faith that is in thee, which dwelt first in thy grandmother Lois and thy mother Eunice, and I am persuaded thee that in thee also." So he's talking about Timothy. And Timothy, we know in the Bible, he's a great preacher. He's well known for being a great preacher. He was an example, a great example to other preachers and to other believers. And all this came because he had a mom. Not because he was anybody, but because his mama, Eunice, raised him up. And where did she get that from? She got it from her mom, Lois. And so I love that the Bible shows here generations. Grandma taught that into mom. Mama taught that into her children. And I feel like, not to be doom and gloom, but our world is not in a great place right now. And I believe we've lost a lot of that from mamas passing it down to the next mom, to the next mom. It's mama's job. And dad's jobs too. But today we get to focus on new moms. So. But us dads, we need to step up and do our part as well. So things I think about that are mother's jobs. And we'll bounce back to Deuteronomy chapter 6. And 4 through 7 says, "Hear, O Israel, thy Lord our God is one Lord. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might. And these words which I command thee in this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto the children." So it's telling you right here, mamas, hey, you got to do this. You got to believe in God. You got to have Him in your heart. And you got to teach it to your children. "And shalt talk of them when thou sittest in thine house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up." Basically, he's giving you a whole lot of things here, but he's saying all the time, all the time. And he goes on for several verses. And he just other ways of saying, hey, this needs to be a part of it all the time, every day. If we look down in verse 17, it said, "Ye shall diligently keep thy commandments of the Lord your God, and his testimonies, and his statutes, which he hath commanded thee. And thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of the Lord." So I feel like he named 40 different things, and then as a caveat, he's like, just in case I miss anything, do what's good in the sight of the Lord. And so that was his kind of little disclaimer, I think, that said, hey, all the time, every time, always. And so that's part of a mama's job. And then look at Proverbs 1:8. It says, "My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. And we know a lot when I grew up. I can't speak for your house, but Dad worked a lot. And I told you in the 80s there, farmers were going broke, so Dad did what a lot of guys did. He had 3 jobs. And Mom was at home raising us kids. And so, you know, Mom did have to make the law a lot of times. And my dad's a good man. But Mom had to run the household. Mom had to put the law down. And right there is what it says. It says she did. Now, Proverbs 22:6. Verse we alluded to earlier. Fingers are sticking together. It said 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And so some things I think about there, back up to Moses. Well, if we study Moses' life, we see that he didn't always make good choices. He did make some good choices, and God sure used him. But it says, train up a child in the way he should go. That wasn't from Pharaoh's daughter. His good training didn't come from that. It came from his mom. And that's why Moses was the man he was. Right there it says, Mamas, that's your job. Train up that child. And like I said, it's Mom's day, but Dad, that's our jobs too. Proverbs 29:15. Just over a couple pages here. It says, the rod and reproof give wisdom, but a child left to himself brings his mother to shame. And so, again, back to training the rod, spanking. When I grew up, I promise you I got a spanking. And my dad, he didn't have to spank him very often, but when he did, he was serious about it and he was firm about it. My mama, she did nothing wrong, but I'll tell you a little story on her. If Mom hadn't spanked you, she got a little more excited while she was spanking you. And so, if Dad said you were getting 5 swats, guess what? You got 5 swats. He gave you a talking to, you moved on. Mom's swats didn't hurt as bad, but if Mom said you was getting 5, you might get 27. 5 was just a warm-up. And it might be with whatever she found. And I'm not saying she abused at all. And she definitely shaped me. I haven't always made the right choices, but just like that said, go back to the right ways. And go back to those right ways because my mama raised me. She spanked me. And she got after me. And little Anthony, he's an angel, but sometimes he's a fallen angel. Sometimes he's got spanked. And it sure changes things. And yeah, if you can see him, he's grinning and shaking his head. He knows. And so, moms are amazing, amazing people. And I believe that part of why the world is in such bad shape is because moms haven't passed it down. And so I'm not trying to be hard on you. I'm just trying to say, here it is. And same with us dads. We're at fault too. But we need to be passing this down. We need to be raising our children right so they can raise the next children right. There's a lot of, I'd say, bad children out there, but I'd mostly say bad parenting out there. Nobody showed them what kind of child to be. They didn't have a mama that loved them. They didn't have a mama that said, Lord, I know you hear this. I need you. You know, my child needs you. Everybody needs you. And so I think about that scraping the wheelbarrow all the time. God knows. But when was the last time you talked to him? You know? And he wants to hear from you. It's like Mom on Mother's Day. Sometimes kids get busy and you know, I was guilty of this sometimes too. I didn't talk to my mom as often as I should. Guess what? Mother's Day you get a phone call, don't you? And God doesn't want you just to wait and hear from you when you're in trouble. And we're all guilty of that. He wants to hear from us all the time. And he knows he can hear you scraping the wheelbarrow, but he'd like you to dial him up and have a conversation about it. And so, some of Mom's jobs. I'll go back to Abraham Lincoln here. Another quote. I wasn't picking on Abraham Lincoln. He just had a lot of good quotes about his mom. And if you read about Abraham Lincoln, his mom actually died when he was at a young age, I think 9. Maybe he misspoken, but that tells me he was older than 5, so his mama put a lot of wisdom in him. But another thing Abraham Lincoln said, he said, I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. How amazing is that? You know, he knew, hey, Mama prayed for me. It was important. And so I think about that a lot. I'm going to share a letter with you, parts of the letter, and never shared this letter with anyone. And in some ways it makes me sad. In some ways it makes me happy. I know my mama loved me. And as you know, I met Tanner in the Air Force, and I wasn't with Tanner on this particular trip, but after 9/11, I got sent to Spain, worked there for a few months. After that, I got sent to a desert vacation and enjoyed a lot of sand and wind and sunshine and not much people. In that time, so that was 2002, in that time, my mom sent me a care package. And said, "Dear son, hope you like some of the things." She tells me her sisters bought some of the things, and they made me snickerdoodle cookies, which is, by the way, if you want to send me anything, I want snickerdoodle cookies. Go for it. And but after my mom talks about them for a minute, this is what she says. She says, "Love you, son. Please take care. Also, I sent you this Bible. Didn't know if you took one with you or not, and I pray that you get close to the Lord like you once was." And like I said, that hurts because I didn't tell Mama, "Hey, I'm not doing everything I ought to do." But you know what? Mama knew. She knew I wasn't doing everything I ought to do. And she said, "I hope you get back. I'm praying for you." You know, that's what a mama does. And we see in the Bible here, all the times mamas, they had to scrape that mirror off. Well, I guarantee you, 2002, I wouldn't say I was a horrible person by any means, but I wasn't close to God like I used to be. And in 2002, Mama sent me a Bible, sent me a letter. She was scraping that mirror. She's like, "Get back to it, boy. I got faith in you. Get back to it." And that's amazing. Moms are amazing. I'm so appreciative. And so I love my mama, and I appreciate her. And thank you guys for being good moms. And so I don't like to end any message without a chance of knowing what this is all about. You know, the Romans Road. I know a lot of you know the Romans Road. But in chapter 3, verse 10, it says, "None are righteous, no, not one." I guarantee you, I'm not. Made plenty of mistakes. We all sin. That's what he's telling us. Romans 3:23, it says, "We all have sinned and come short of the glory of God." And so he's not painting a very good picture there for us so far. You know, 6:23, now he's telling us the wages of sin is death. Wages you get paid for doing something. Now he's telling us it's death. And we know that death is condemned to hell. So far, not a good picture. Chapter 5, verse 8, God commended his love toward us that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. We just had Easter not too long ago. Not only did he die, he rose. And so we know, hey, this is looking a little better, you know. 10:13, it says, "Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved." He's telling us right there, hey, ask, you're going to get it. Chapter 10, 9-13, it says, "If we confess with our mouth, if we believe in our heart that God raised Jesus from the dead, thou shalt be saved."
That's right.
And so it starts off kind of doom and gloom. It tells us what we deserve. But he says, even though you deserve this, you don't have to have this. This is a gift. You know, gifts are free. I'm giving this to you. You just have to accept it. Anthony, where are you going to go when you die? How come? I need a better answer than that. There you go. I just put him on the spot. I didn't prep him for this. But if you heard him, he said, "I asked Jesus into my heart." The end of last July. He asked me for months because Mom was trying to teach him Jesus. Daddy's trying to teach him Jesus. You know? And then he said, "Hey, I want to go to heaven." And I said, "Okay." We mentioned it, we talked about it, and I left it alone. And he's 6 years old. Not that a child can't understand. The Bible says they can understand. But I didn't want to rush into it. He asked us again. We talked about it. We just let it ride. And then he basically came in and said, "Hey, it's time. Let's do this." And so he prayed and asked Jesus into his heart, just like he told us. And I didn't put him on the spot there. I mean, I put him on the spot. I didn't prep him for that. And so that's amazing. That's how we get there.
Good confession.
Yes. And it's all comes back to Mama, comes back to Daddy. Today's Mama Day, but it comes back to all of us. And we need to pray. We need to have faith like those mamas had. We need to believe in our child. We need to believe in each other. We need to help each other. And we need to be able to see Jesus. Mary had favor in the sight of the Lord. Don't you think that that means she was living like she should be living? And other people could see that. You know, he didn't just randomly pick somebody. He's like, I have favor. She's living like she already lived. And he used all these wonderful women to make wonderful gifts. And that went on to fulfill his work. You know, and just like my mom was a great lady and done so much. And done so much for other people. She raised us kids. But as I told you, at her funeral, I found out all the things she did for so many other people. And so, thank you, mamas. But we're in a world of hurt with where we're living. So let's be better mamas. Let's be better dads. Let's push it down the line. So I'd like to have a moment of invitation. We're going to he's going to play a hymn here for us. But some things to think about. We don't come to church just so our people can see our new outfit or so they can see that we went to church. My buddy preaches at a Calvary church in Colorado, and he always says, this is a sick pen for sinners. It's not a showroom for saints. And if you're here to show off, you're in the wrong spot. You know, we need to come here and get fed. Nothing worse than, you know, I told you we deal a lot with cattle. Cattle belly up to the food trough and there's no food in it. You know? And so I hate to come to church and not be fed. And this is what it's about. Pastor that I had growing up, by the name of Paul Worley. This has stuck in my mind for a long time. Now I'm not preaching to you moms, and I'm not preaching to you dad. Now I'm preaching to Matt Joey. And because I'm guilty of this. He said, you know what? There's 2 times you should go down to the altar. And he said, one, when God spoke to you. That makes a lot of sense. I should go to the altar. He said, number 2, when God didn't speak to you. And again, I'm preaching to Matt Job. I'm just sharing that with you. So we're going to have a little invitation here. I'm going to be at the altar because that's where I should be, whether God spoke to me or whether God didn't speak to me. And we need to pray for each other. And we need to pray for our country. And I don't want to get into your all's business or get too political or nothing, but y'all have a Liberation Day coming up. And that's awesome. You guys need to be praying for your church. You need to be praying for yourselves. And so, come to the altar. Let's pray. And if you don't know God is your Savior, and God, like we talked about, then hey, now's the time. Today's the day. And so feel free to reach out to me anytime, stop me afterwards, whatever. Other men and ladies in this church will help you out too. And so don't leave here not right with God. Don't leave here not saved. And remember, He that planted the ear, He hears. You know, that wheelbarrow was from that mama, but it's from us too. God knows. He hears us. Let's open up that line of communication a little bit. All right. Let's bow our heads and say a word of prayer. We'll be dismissed. Yeah, Father, thank you again that we get to come here and worship you, Lord.